Hello, welcome. Today we are going to discuss some fundamental aspects of protein structure and function. All those who have basic information about proteins will be able to get benefit from this lecture. Proteins are extremely complex molecules. It is somehow close to impossible to understand the whole structural details of a protein just because it requires lots of experimentation and most of the proteins are not consisting of just one rather polypeptide chain, or rather they are made up of multi-polypeptide chains, and it is very difficult to purify all of these polypeptide chains in their native structures, which are required for detailed experimentation. Nonetheless, any protein can go through certain levels of structural organization as enlisted here, and these protein models could be shown in one of these two models as shown by A and B. A is a space filling model illustrating uh, the volume occupied by a molecular component, and it is a ball and stick model, whereas the B is a ribbon model where secondary structures like beta pleated sheets and alpha helices could be shown, and this gives uh, uh, sufficient amount of information to understand a protein. Any protein is normally determined by the primary order of their amino acid, and this is the first structural level, and this order of amino acid is normally read from N to C terminal, that is the amino terminal, to carboxyl terminal, and individual to any two amino acids are joined together by peptide bond, and the detail of this bond is coming shortly. Then it comes the second structural level where uh, where the carbon backbone of the uh, primary polypeptide chain fold up to give rise to alpha helices or beta pleated sheets, and then further these alpha helices and beta pleated sheets fold together, fold around themselves to give rise a three-dimensional arrangement of the protein side chains, and sometimes some prosthetic groups which are other than the amino acids of the polypeptide are required. Then comes the fourth level of structural organization, where multiple subunits of a protein or multiple polypeptide chain could join together to give rise to fully functional protein, and sometimes the multi-subunit protein heavily rely on this structural organization to perform their functions actively. This is ball and stick model of famous oxygen carrier molecule myoglobin, which is an excellent oxygen carrier and present abundantly in cardiac and skeletal muscles and give them a characteristic red coloration. This protein is also abundantly present in sea-diving mammals such as whale. This consists of one single polypeptide chain and have 8 sections of alpha helix, which are shown here by these alphabets from A to H. Uh, this folding of polypeptide chain give to this characteristic crevice or pocket structure, which almost completely cover this porphyrin heme molecule. This is a porphyrin ring, which is an heterocyclic organic molecule, consists of 4 modified pyrrole rings, pyrrole molecule, and in the middle there is an iron molecule, iron atom, and this has an excellent affinity to bind with oxygen when it is in ferrous form. However, this interaction with oxygen is an irreversible interaction. That means this oxygen cannot be released even when it is required in the tissue organs. Uh, Amino acid side chains of this polypeptide interact non-covalently with non-polar porphyrin or pyrrole ring, and this non-polar interaction between porphyrin and amino acid side chain reduce the ability of this iron to bind with this oxygen. This reduced oxygen affinity make this interaction a reversible interaction, which means when oxygen pressure is changed in the tissue organs, this oxygen can be released. All the amino acid side chain which are interacting with this heme molecule, uh, they are non-polar except this histidine. and they play a very important role. One of these is histidine, the proximal one, bound directly to the same molecule, whereas the distal histidine molecule do not bind with the same, rather it stabilizes the overall structure. So fundamentally, when we talk about a protein structure, the first thing we have already discussed in previous lectures as well, that the two amino acids when joined together, they make a bond which is called a peptide bond. And in fact, this is a dehydration reaction, just like any other dehydration reaction. So what happened, in fact, the amino group, this for example, this is the amino acid 1 and this is the amino acid 2. The first amino acids, the carboxyl part of this amino acid and the amino part of the second amino acid join together, and they can make a bond which is called the peptide bond. You can see this peptide bond, this yellow ball here showing this peptide bond. So this amino end has been joined now with this carboxyl end, and the end result is that the OH group from here and hydrogen group from here has joined together, and they have made this water molecule. So this is how this is happening. So as a result of that, we have lots of peptide bonds. So if a protein, if a polypeptide, if not protein, if a polypeptide at its primary level structure is made up of, let's suppose, 100 amino acids. All of these 100 amino acids are joined by these peptide bonds, and these peptide bonds are going like this. And this is the fundamental thing. These peptide bonds are not easily breakable, so they are quite stable. You cannot break them by just heating them, because they have really high energy, energetics. We will talk about them maybe later on. We have already talked in previous lectures. Uh, so fundamentally, when you heat up a protein, you do not break, in fact, these peptide bonds. Rather, you break some of the secondary structures. You denature those proteins, in other words. Okay. Uh, this is again primary structure, which is the basic decisive factor for any protein is the amino acid sequence. So this is a very clear thing which we need to understand. So every protein is made up of some basic constituents, and this is the linearly arranged amino acids, and this is called the amino acid sequence, and this give rise to the properties of these proteins. So there are different proteins with different amino acid sequence. So fundamentally, every protein, primary structure of protein depends on the amino acid sequence. And there are proteins which have similar amino acid sequence. For example, let's talk about, we have already talked about previously some neurotransmitters which have the similar amino acid sequence, and these amino acid sequence like vasopressin, as well as we talk about the oxytocin. These are more or less the similar structure, primary sequence. These proteins somehow are called homologous protein. Homologous proteins share similar sequence or around from their ancestors. So these similar proteins, similar sequence is coming from maybe many generations, maybe millions of years. So that is why some of these sequences which have not been changed since the beginning, they are called conserved sequences, whereas other sequences which conserved sequences are invariant sequences, whereas others which could be changed somehow, these are called non-conserved sequences or mutated sequence. We will see those so in when you talk about cytochrome, so this is the model, this is the three-dimensional structure of cytochrome, and in the middle you can see again the heme molecule. We have just shortly talked about this heme molecule a little bit ago, and in the center there is an oxygen molecule, you can which have been joined by this heme. So this cytochrome molecule is present, in fact, most of the time in the mitochondria, and play a very vital role in energetic, cellular energetic, and it has been conserved for centuries, for millions of years, from single cellular organisms to the low to the multicellular higher order organisms, even human, mouse, cats, and every one of them has this cytochrome C. Fundamentally, these cytochrome this cytochrome is in fact somehow conserved. As in the previous slide, as in the previous slide, I have shown you people that the amino acid residues which are in fact joining this heme molecule, they are conserved. I mean, if you could see it again here, these are invariant amino acids, they interact with the heme molecule. Evolutionary, some of the amino acid residues, so one protein could be similar to among many organisms, and these proteins are called homologous proteins. Mostly the homologous proteins have conserved sequences. These are those sequences which do not change evolutionary, they remained there. They are called invariant sequences. In cytochrome C, the amino acids which are interacting with this heme molecule, these amino acids are evolutionary conserved. Uh, Guess what will happen if an individual end up having mutation with these residues? Obviously, this will be in fact a very lethal thing, and this heme molecule might not be able to again bind to this heme, and this the whole function, the energetics, cellular kinetics will not be performed. So that means any change in primary structure could be lethal. Any change in lethal, but it's not always lethal, because there are proteins, there are instances where these mutations could happen. For example, if mutation might happen in other regions of this protein. So for example, this protein cytochrome contain hundreds of amino acids, and we are just talking about maybe 5 to 10 amino acids which are around this heme molecule. They could be very essential for its functioning, but there are other amino acids which are not uh, uh, which are present outside on the outer surface. So that means if mutation could happen to those areas, it will not be that much lethal. So this is how a primary structure could look like. So you have an N terminal, you have a C terminal, and then there are protein molecule, amino acid molecule, joined head to head, and then this is the whole thing. So any mutation, any change in the DNA could in fact affect these primary sequences. So these are the primary sequences जिसकी हम बात कर रहे हैं. So any change could affect these primary sequences, uh, and these primary sequences, if they are not evolutionary conserved, if they are not essential, they might not affect the working of this protein. ठीक है? However, not all the mutations are lethal. Some of the mutations are conservative mutations. So when you say conservative mutation, so that means a similar type of amino acid could be replaced by another amino acid. For example, leucine and isoleucine are similar amino acids, so they could be replaced by one another. Both are hydrophobic side chain. So leucine and isoleucine both do not like the water molecule, so they do not interact with them. So leucine could be replaced by isoleucine. So this will be a conservative mutation, and this will not affect the functionality of protein. So these are called conservative amino acids. So they could be they could be replaced by other. So there is an evolutionary thing which I just wanted to show you. This is the cytochrome C molecule present in human, chimps, mouse, rat, cat, and you can see there are multiple mutations present here. For example, if you can see it here, if you can see it here with this one single uh, static. These are conserved residues, and those where are two dots are present, these are conservative residues, and those where there is no mark present, this is that is the non-conservative residues, and so on and so forth. So you can see that the cytochrome C molecule is present almost in all organisms, but evolutionary there are some functions which are very important performed by this protein. So that is why it, sorry, this is the histone 1 protein, it's not the cytochrome protein was previous one. So you see
some of the proteins which are fundamentally very crucial for the cell performance, they have been conserved from one organism to the other organism and so forth. So scientists could use these mutations to map the evolutionary relationship of different organisms so that they could tell when and how these organisms might have evolved from one another. So this is a phylogen. These relationships are called phylogenetic trees, and these are based on fundamentally the amino acid sequence or DNA sequences, whatever your starting material. In this case, these are the amino acid sequences used for cytochrome C to make an evolutionary tree. And what you can see that evolutionary cytochrome C is present in almost all major animal kingdom, and you can see it here. What you can see here, humans and mice have a very almost similar cytochrome C. Even the chimpanzees and humans have zero mutation for the cytochrome C. It seems they have been recently emerged. So, do you know what does recent means? This recent means in this case roughly maybe 50 million years ago. So, does it seems to be a very recent time? It's a very recent time, you see, compared to the evolutionary history, which is which elongate for the millions of years, for the billions of years. This is very recent time. Moreover, the cytochrome C of cows, kangaroos, rabbits, and humans have 10 mutations in them, 10 residues, so they are also similar to each other. This graph in fact tells you how many residues are different in among different organisms from human. For example, chimpanzees have zero mutation, monkey 1, rabbit 9, and so on and so forth. So this is the basic level of protein structure which we are in fact interested. Another interesting example, which is in fact very common, and we have been learning this example since our college times, or since our elementary school time, is the hemoglobin. And you know what is there are two types of traits of hemoglobin. One is called the sickle cell, another one is the other one is the normal hemoglobin. So what is the difference in both of them? So such type of diseases which are happening just because of one amino acid change or two amino acid change, these are called molecular diseases. So these are mutations, not because of the absence or presence of one thing, just because, rather they have been arisen just because there is a slightly different form of that molecule. So that is why these are called molecular diseases. What is the difference in normal and sickle cell hemoglobin molecule is present in the beta sub chain of the hemoglobin. So all you know, hemoglobin is made up of 4 sub chains: alpha, beta, 2 alpha and 2 beta sub chains, and each of these alpha and beta sub chains again join to the heme molecule, and this is again the heme molecule, porphyrin ring, and then the iron molecule which is present in the middle, and this is how it is happening. So what is different in hemoglobin A and hemoglobin S? We name hemoglobin A the normal hemoglobin wild type, and the S the sickle cell. There is just one amino acid, which is called valine, instead of glutamine, which is present in normal, instead of glutamic acid. There is a valine residue present in sickle cell, and this is so drastic change, just one amino acid change. This is the primary structure, and we are discussing how important is this primary structure. This one amino acid could change the overall chemistry of this hemoglobin. So this is the red ball, which you can see it here. Uh, this is the hemoglobin. So what happened when one valine, the residue 6 from glutamine change to valine, it becomes the sickle shape. So what is a sickle shape? Is literally like a sickle shape. So just like, for example, first day moon, you have seen how a first day moon look like. It's just a half rounded shape. This is a sickle shape. how this happens. So what is the end result? The end is that this molecule is no more able to carry normal oxygen. So the pressure, under the low pressure oxygen, under the low pressure of oxygen, this is unable to change and it could be lethal. And the end result is the hemolysis. The hemolysis, the breakdown of this molecule, mm, uh, earlier and quicker than the normal molecule, how it is happening. So here is the fact, and I would like you people to just try to focus what I wanted to tell you here. So what is the fact? Sickle cell, those organisms who do not carry sickle cell, uh, they are considered normal, but those organisms which are sickle cell, they have compromised lifespan. So that means their lifespan could be shortened just because they do not have. So if an organism is homozygous for this stuff, it's lethal, maybe in soon after birth, or maybe in the child during the childhood. But if an organism is not homozygous for this trait, rather he is a heterozygous, just like this one. So one of the allele is normal, another one is the sickle cell allele. He will live normal lifespan. Although there are 40% of this hemoglobin which is sickle shaped, but rest of the 60% is the normal one, so that organism will live there. And as a result, he will be a carrier. He will, until God forbid, until the time when there is a situation when there is a low oxygen pressure, he will be gone. This is this is one of the way how nature is somehow preserving this particular trait, which is called sickle cell trait. Otherwise those organisms, हमें पता है ना, we all know what are the natural selection, and under this natural selection these organisms are the best fit organism. आप लोगों को पता है ना natural selection क्या होती है?
Yes, sir.
So under the normal circumstances, these are the naturally selected organisms, and those are the organisms which with the sickle cell, these are not the naturally selected organisms, so they will live. So this is how one of the way how nature is preserving those phenotypes which are not favorable. Do you believe, फिर भी क्या हम ये समझते हैं कि कोई ऐसा भी दुनिया का हिस्सा होगा जहां पर सिकल सेल वाले लोग ज्यादा तादाद में होंगे? Mean these heterozygotes are more in number than
Yes, sir.
homozygotes.
Yes, sir.
And these are those regions. कौन से regions हैं भला वो?
Sir, जहाँ मलेरिया ज़्यादा है common.
Yes, exactly. So those areas where there is a malaria pandemic, आजकल pandemic ही मेरे जेहन से निकल रहा है जुबान से, epidemic is there. So those areas are more frequent with this sickle cell phenotype. Why it is so? क्यों है ऐसा?
Sir, because probably this kind of genetic makeup prevents them from carrying malaria. तो मतलब उन जिनमें ये heterozygous होते हैं उनको मलेरिया नहीं होता as compared to those homozygous जो normal carry कर रहे होते हैं for the blood cells.
क्या वजह हो सकती है उनकी प्रोटेक्टिव होने की? कोई मोलेकुलर रीजन होनी चाहिए इसके पीछे कोई?
क्योंकि वो सपोर्ट नहीं करते ग्रोथ ऑफ पैरासाइट, मे बी ड्यू टू मींस ब्लड जो है वो ऑक्सीजन कम कैरी करता है, तो
Yes,
जो
exactly.
मॉस्किटो है उसको ज्यादा फेवरेबल कंडीशंस भी मिलती होंगी उसके वायरस वो क्या कहते हैं पैरासाइट को.
Yeah, for a malarial parasite, normal hemoglobin is the ideal thing, where there is plenty of oxygen, plenty of environment favoring. But while these sickle cell patients, they have less oxygen pressure, and of course, this less oxygen pressure is not favorable for this patient, for this malarial parasite. So as a result, it do not develop there quite normally. So as a result, those patients which have sickle cell, of course they are heterozygous for sickle cell, they have better chances to survive because those who have normal blood, normal hemoglobin, they will be infected by the parasite and they will caught malaria and they will be going to die. So end result is those patients with the normal hemoglobin, they are not going to stay there, and but the others who have sickle cell, they are going to stay. So you see, this is a very interesting pattern of natural selection. I mean, I just wanted to take this a moment to just give you a very interesting hint what is happening nowadays as well. So this is a very interesting pattern. Nature is not selecting, in fact, deformed organisms. ऐसा ही है, वो सिकल सेल को वो बेसिकली फेवर नहीं कर रही नेचर. बेसिकली नेचर फेवर कर रही है सर्वाइवल को. एंड whoever is in fact whoever or whatever is in fact favoring this survival instinct, doesn't matter उसका नाक कैसा है, कान कैसा है, आंख कैसी है, हाथ कैसे है, if it is a favorable thing for the survival, nature will select it. This is called natural selection. इसका ये बिल्कुल कोई हरगिज नेचुरल सिलेक्शन का मतलब नहीं है कि नेचर कोई परफेक्ट चीज ढूंढती है जिसको वो सिलेक्ट करती है. देयर इज नथिंग परफेक्ट. Every natural selection pressure is operated under a certain set of conditions, and whatever is favorable under those set of conditions, this will be selected. Under these set of conditions, where malaria is a lethal thing, only those organisms could be survived who do not allow malaria to develop in their body. This is the only criteria here which nature is selecting, and that is why the sickle cell patients are in fact living there very good. In some of the people, there are 40% of the some of the areas, 40% of the populations are made up of sickle cell. So keeping this in mind, I just wanted to give you just few more comments about this current situation, what is happening nowadays in our cities, in our world, if not cities, about this very famous, very frequent pandemic which is called coronavirus. So what do you think, what is happening here? Is there natural selection at play?
Yes sir, maybe because जिनकी इम्यूनिटी ज्यादा स्ट्रांग है या वो सरवाइव कर रहेगी, लेकिन जहाँ जिनके लंग्स या कुछ भी थोड़ा लैक कर रहा है तो वो ज्यादा अफेक्टेड होंगे एज कंपेयर टू अदर.
Yes, because if this is a natural pressure, if this is a selection pressure, and of course it is a selection pressure, we have always been at war with other living organisms in this universe. But over the last few decades, this is more drastic because we have somehow distorted the ecosystem. We have spoiled this ecosystem. इस पूरे ecosystem को हम लोगों ने बिल्कुल तहस नहस कर दिया. तो वो जो organism जो इस ecosystem का हिस्सा थे, now they are in an open war with the human body as well. So one of the things are happening nowadays, जिसको हम कोरोना वायरस कहते हैं. जो immune system strong होंगे वो बच जाएंगे, जो नहीं strong होंगे वो नहीं बचेंगे. नेचर को इससे बिल्कुल कोई परवाह नहीं है कि वो इकोसिस्टम और वो इम्यून सिस्टम किसी अमीर का है कि गरीब का. ठीक है, वो इकोसिस्टम, वो इम्यून सिस्टम किसी मर्द का है या किसी औरत का है, किसी कलर्ड ऑर्गेनिज्म का है जिसको हम ब्लैक कहते हैं, या नॉन कलर्ड का है, डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में है या अंडर डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में है. इट इज जस्ट अ सिंपल एक्ट ऑफ वॉर where two enemies are at war with each other, humans versus this pathogen, and whoever is going to win, the one which could be favorable for this natural selection at the moment. Okay, just take some time and read this paragraph so that it's a similar thing. For example, a genetic disease called glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency is inherited in a manner similar to the sickle cell anemia. The defective enzyme cannot keep erythrocytes supplied with sufficient amount of the antioxidant molecule, which is in fact NADPH. What NADPH do? NADPH protects cell membrane and other cellular structures from oxidation. डिस्क्राइब अब आप लोगों का काम क्या है, अब ये देखिए मैंने बताया कि एक जेनेटिक डिजीज है जिसको हम ग्लूकोज 6 फॉस्फेट डिहाइड्रोजनेज डेफिशिएंसी कहते हैं, जो सिकल सेल की तरह ही ऑर्गेनिज्म के अंदर चलती है। जो डिफेक्टिव एंजाइम है वो डिफेक्टिव एंजाइम जो है वो एरिथ्रोसाइट्स को एंटीऑक्सीडेंट्स नहीं दे पाता। एंटीऑक्सीडेंट के बाद NADPH, दिस एंजाइम आपके जो सिंगल कार्बन मेटाबॉलिज्म उसके अंदर इंपॉर्टेंट है। सो डिस्क्राइब इन जनरल टर्म्स द इनहेरिटेंस पैटर्न ऑफ दिस मॉलिक्यूल। ये इनहेरिटेंस पैटर्न कैसे वर्क कर सकता है इन जनरल टर्म? व्हाई डू यू थिंक द एंटी मलेरियल ड्रग primacoin, which stimulates the peroxidase formation, results in devastating cases of hemolytic anemia? ठीक है, अगर एक एंटी मलेरियल ड्रग आप इस्तेमाल करें इन पेशेंट्स के अंदर, ठीक है, तो वो इन पेशेंट्स को क्यों उनके लिए खतरनाक है जिनके अंदर ये डिफेक्टिव डिजीज मौजूद है, डिफेक्टिव जीन मौजूद है? क्या वजह हो सकती है? डज इट सरप्राइज यू दैट this genetic anomaly is commonly found in Africa and Mediterranean population?